Hello and welcome back to Revender Sports and episode 2 of the series Paris, Brest, Paris final countdown. So today, T-18. Today I wish to talk to you about the bike because it is the centerpiece of your adventure. Your bike needs to be in a very, very good operating condition. Everything should be looked at, inspected, greased, or replaced. Okay, so before I get into that, I just want to talk about the weather. So for today, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, August 5th, they are looking at rain. So that also gives to me an indication of other things I need to do to my bike and other things I may need to do for my packing. Now, of course, this is the short range forecast, but the long range forecast also can change. So you might as well have the options, and then if you don't need them, then either you don't pack them or you pack them if they're really light and you can take them with you. So that's the weather for the next few days. It looks like rain until Friday. So we want to make sure that if we have to, we pack those kinds of things. Okay, so let's get to the bike itself. Now, I'm going to go through the things that I'm going to do to my bike, and then you consider what you want to do to your bike. In general, bikes are bikes, and they take basically the same type of service, but some bikes have a little bit more integration, or some bikes have a little bit more electronics, and so on and so forth. I will be riding my Ritchie. External cables, just the easiest thing that there is to repair on the road. External cables, rim brake, just the easiest bike to work on when you're out in the middle of nowhere. So let's talk about the things that I would recommend that you tell your bike shop to inspect, grease, or replace. First of all, if you're running cables and housing, get them replaced. There's just no reason to have a cable shred on you. As a matter of fact, I've got a bike in here now. This person is racing on Saturday. And if you can see here, that's the rear derailleur cable, completely shredded. So you don't want this to happen. And it can happen at any time. I love Shimano, but one of the things I do not like about them is that they eat cables for this hidden system. So the cables that came out of the derailleurs, the shifters like this, they didn't shred. Anyway, cables, housing, make sure you get those replaced. The cassette, you should have chosen your gearing by now. I think I'm going to go with an 1132. I did all of my brevets on 1128, but I figure I'm going to be more loaded down, more gear, and much longer. So I did up to a 600K with 15,000 feet of climbing here in Southern Cal, which, had a lot of steep stuff at the end. From what I understand, there's not a lot of steep stuff, 6 to 8% rollers all the time. So I think a 32 is fine. And I'm running a 5339 up front. I think that'll be fine for me, but we'll see. I mean, this is all a new lesson for me. So going back to the cassette, clean it and replace it if you think it's been on there too long. Your chain, you might as well replace it. I mean, unless you just put it on a couple of weeks ago or maybe a month ago, think about this. This is a 750-mile ride / race for those that want to race it. That's at a minimum a month's worth of riding for some folks. Some people put 250 a week, so that's probably 3 weeks of riding. So if you're kind of within a month to a month and a half of, well, should I replace it? Should I? Just replace it. I quote a lot of movies in either my thumbnail, in my title, or somewhere through the video. No one caught the meow reference of Super Troopers, but here's another line that I'm going to use. Whenever there's a doubt, there is no doubt. Okay? So if you're doubting whether you should replace your chain, there is no doubt. Just replace it. Chain rings, you should know whether your chain rings need replacing or not. My chain rings, I've never had to replace them in in hundreds of thousands of miles. Okay, keep in mind that if you go on the cheap and you're like, well, just do the chain, don't do the cassette, or just do the chain and cassette, but don't do the chain rings, and you get your bike back and then you test ride it and things are slipping, think about it. You got to take it back to the bike shop, get that sorted out, still get the bike back in time for you to pack it, which is what I talked about in the first video. You got to get your bike back with enough time to pack your bike. Also, please be nice to your local bike shop. They are in a very high stress environment at this time of the year in most parts of the world, or the northern hemisphere of the world. So everyone's got huge events coming up. So everyone needs their bike repaired, replaced quickly. Okay, if you got brakes that are rubber brake pads, super easy, super inexpensive to replace. You know, $10 for some fresh rubber gives you some really good braking power. I use these head wheels, which have a textured brake track, so I'll be laughing at the disc brake people making a ton of noise on their bikes because their brakes are all messy and whatever. So if you have disc brake, then sure, replace your rotors and your pads if they need replacing. But, you know, mine are in good shape. So, but just make sure that you get that done, or at least, at the very least, inspected. Also, if you're not from a wet climate, like I just showed you, there's about 5 days straight of rain in the 70-80% chance of rain. So some things you may want to consider. Now, I haven't done it yet, but you could still see some grease coming out from my headset here. And if we zoom in down here, you'll probably see some grease there as well. So I always pack a lot of grease in my headset, and that becomes an element barrier to rain, mud, dirt, sand. You know, I take my road bike everywhere. I don't have a gravel bike. I did buy an Outback frame. I just haven't built it yet because I just take my road bike everywhere. So drop out your fork, get those bearings inspected, make sure that they're not notchy or anything like that, get them lubed and put them back in. There was a weekend once where I rode the tandem to Palm Springs, so it was about 100 miles out to Palm Springs. On Friday, Saturday did the Palm Springs Century, and then Sunday rode back. So 325 miles, I forget the number of elevation. The elevation on Saturday was super light, like 3,000 feet, but on the way out to Palm Desert and Palm Springs, and on the return, 7,000 or 8,000 feet each day. The point of that story is the headset bearings just seized up on me. They started getting notchy on day 2. By day 3, they were just in really bad shape. But we had 100 miles to get home, and we just rode it home. But I would turn the handlebar, and the front wheel wouldn't turn. And then it would turn. Oh, it was just a mess. And you're on narrow roads, country roads, and people don't want you out there anyway. Motorists, I should say. So get your headset bearings inspected. Same thing with your bottom brackets. You know, I ride a threaded bottom bracket because it's just a very well sealed system, but I'm still going to pull my crankset out and I'm going to pack some grease between the outer seal and the crankset itself, just to create another element barrier to any type of rain, and also on the non-drive side. Now, curiously, it's almost always a non-drive side bearing that goes bad. The drive side is fine. In other words, the left side of the bike, this bearing is usually the one that goes bad on press fit and things like that. And then on the drive side, it's usually good. But just get them both replaced. You just don't have time to muck around. Also, your wheel bearings. Check, inspect your wheel bearings. If you have Shimano, high-end Shimano like Durace, you can just take the ball bearings out, clean them out, because they do a loose ball system. They don't do a cartridge bearing. And you could just lube them, I should say, clean them, lube them, and put them back in, right? So you'll want to inspect all your bearings. So your headset bearings, your wheel bearings, and your bottom bracket bearings. Just make sure that they're smooth. You don't want to waste any watts, right? We don't want to waste any watts, but additionally, we just don't want any mechanicals out there. Okay? So if you're running SRAM, just replace your 2032 battery in your shifters. There's just no point in kind of guessing how much life you have left. So the new Shimano 12-speed, same thing. You've got a dedicated battery that goes in here because everything else is wireless for SRAM, and then for Shimano, it's all the derailleurs and the internal battery are connected, but it's wireless from here. So you need a battery here. Just replace it now. On the 400K, one of the riders I was with, his battery went out on his shifter, and I'm like, you're an experienced ultra cyclist. The guy's super fast, by the way. And here we are on the side of the road changing out a shifter battery. He had the battery with him. I'm just not sure why he didn't replace it at home. All right, so 2032, and then the Shimano one, I forget what it is. It's a different number. It's not as common, so just replace it before you head out. Okay, so the skewers also creak and make all kinds of noise when they get wet for multiple days, so just be aware of that. Tires, if you're anywhere close to the wear indicator on your tires, which this set, that might be it, but if not, let me keep looking. Yeah, there's the wear indicator. And, these tires are going to get replaced. I'm just doing my last few training rides, but there's just no reason to take a chance. Brand new tires, just get them replaced. There's the other wear indicator right there. Okay, so there's the two wear indicators. Michelin does that, and so does Continental. So, one thing I noticed just for buying my own tires, there's a huge shortage of 28, 30, and 32 tires right now. So hopefully you've got some tires. Hopefully your bike shop has some tires, but there's been quite a bit of tire shortage. Now, some of you are super race minded. You're aero this, everything about everything you do, because you only do 30-mile rides anyway. That's all you're thinking about. Aerodynamics and speed and performance and all that stuff. This is 750 miles. This is 3-day plus on the bike. I would say err on the side of comfort. I am generally a very performance-orientated person with my bike equipment. But these are 28s that I'm training on. Let's see, where's my other set? These are 30s that I did the 400K and the 600K. And I was comfortable. And that's what's most important. You're going to be on your bike multiple days, 250 plus per day miles. Err on the side of comfort. The performance will come because you're not off the bike tired. You're willing to pedal a little harder. You're willing to go a little longer. You won't stop at that extra control because you're not getting beat up by these 25 millimeter or 23 millimeter old school tires. You should err on the side of comfort. You do you. Next question that I'm getting, and I have also posed to folks, tubeless or tubed? I don't know. Traveling? I don't know. Will it be easy to find a bike shop if I travel with sealant in the tires and then it's all over my travel box? What would I do then? 8,000 people all looking for bike shops, so I don't know. I can do a lot of stuff myself. I just won't have a compressor. I won't have, floor pump. I won't have that kind of stuff. So, but I was thinking maybe start off tubeless, because if I get a flat, I would put a tube in anyway, whether I was riding tubed or not, right? So, lastly, and of course we'll address more things, lastly, treat yourself to some new bar tape, okay? I love finishing my bike repair with a fresh wrap on my bike. I like white. Why? Because it just shows when my bike has been used quite a bit, and it's time to go through and service it. You know, it's a good indicator, good barometric indicator of, yeah, you've got quite a few miles on here. The bar tape won't come clean anymore. It's time to give the bike a good thorough cleaning. So treat yourself to some new bar tape. You will feel so much happier riding your bike after spending all this time training, all this money prepping to get out there. And now you got a nice clean bike, nice bar tape, and you'll get out there. So it's a psychological thing, but I know it works for me. It's got to work for someone else in that 8,000 man peloton. So that's all for today. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you up the road.